Hi, welcome to this tutorial in which we're going to look at how to put your own animated contents kind of in situ anywhere on the street on like an existing screen. So I'm using PiccadillyCircus as an example, and we're just going to look at how to put your own contents into any of those screens and what effects to use to that. And then in the second tutorial, which is going to follow, we're going to look at how to make something look like it's projected anywhere. But first of all, PiccadillyCircus. So I'm just going to import all of the assets that you downloaded into After Effects. Just create a folder that's called Images. And another folder for the compositions. Right, so we're going to start with PiccadillyCircus. I'm just going to pick the second one and create a composition from this image. And just put it in here. Right, so it's just a still at the moment, but obviously you can use it, you can do your moving background whichever way you want. So the second thing, I'm just going to drag in either of those pieces of contents. I'm going to use the split screen A, which is something that we created. Right, and we kind of want to get this onto that screen to make it look like it's in the same perspective. So I'm just first of all just gonna, I have shift clicked so that it scales to the proportions. I'm just gonna roughly put it on top of that screen, and just so I can see what's going on, I'm just gonna hit T to open the transparency, the opacity property. I'm just gonna reduce the opacity to like 60%, just so I can actually see the screen underneath. Right, and the effect we're gonna use is called corner pin. So go to Effect, Distort, Corner pin, and what that gives us are these circular little dots on each of the corners, and the effects panel, you can see that, well, each corner of the image of our layer now has like coordinates, so I can basically click and drag them and modify the way it looks. So I'm just going to kind of take all of those four corners and position them on the corners of that screen to make it look like that's where it came from. That's where it's sitting on. Right, cool. After I've done that, I'm just going to put the opacity back up to 100% to see it. Well, and maybe now I feel like I have not done a very good job. You know, it's actually not too bad, but you might want to go back to it. The only reason I mentioned that's really important, if now I select my layer, I can't actually access those corners anymore. I have to make sure that I select the effect. You might have different effects on there, and After Effects doesn't know which one you want to modify. I have to make sure I have the effect selected to get those little dots back to be able to modify that. Right, so that's number one. That's sitting there nicely. And then the second screen is going to be this one up here. So the corner pin is kind of fairly straightforward. You can only modify the corners, but now we need something that has a bit of rounding to it. So I'm just going to get the second piece of content in there, and again roughly position it where I want it to be. Hit T to open the opacity and just reduce it down to 60 as well, just so I see again what's going on underneath. Now the effect we're going to use now is called a Bezier warp. So I go to Effect, Distort, Bezier warp. And so this one, in addition to giving me like these dots for the corners, I also have these handles, which is all vector based. So whichever way you would do it in Illustrator, it's the same way. But actually, I want to do something else first. So I'm just going to delete this effect again, because basically that screen, the aspect ratio of that screen is nowhere near my image. And I don't want to squash it. I don't want to do this and kind of fudge it on there. I want to crop a piece out of it. So I'm just going to go back to my project. And what I want to do is I want to create a new composition just with this content. Because a composition is basically like any piece of footage that you can use up here. So you can put a composition into a composition into a composition, and that's basically endless. So all I want to do is in here, I just want to change the height of this composition. So I'm hitting Command K, which brings up the composition settings again. You could also go the way here and kind of right click on the composition and go to composition settings there. Right, so I'm just going to change the height to half of it, so let's say 180 pixels. I need to make sure I've uncheck this box, because otherwise it will change. It will lock the aspect ratio and change both values at the same time. So this looks a lot more like the size of that screen of PiccadillyCircus. So I'm just going to delete the one that I've already dragged in there and put this composition in there. Change the opacity down to 60. And now I'm going to use again the effect Distort Bezier Warp. But actually, because I've used it just before, the last effect that I've used is actually up here, so I could also just go up here and click it there. Right, and it's similar to corner pin, like I said, but you also have the added control with those handles, with those vector handles. So I'm just positioning those corners there first, and then adjusting those little ones. Oops. See, and now again, I have to select my layer. I just accidentally clicked somewhere else. And I need to make sure I have the effect selected first before I can access those handles again. Yeah, that's not too bad, you know. You can spend a lot of time on it if you want to. Well, this is a quick thing to show you how it works. Right, so cool. Now I'm just going to put the opacity completely up again, and you can see that I did not do a very good job, but that's not the point right now. Cool, so that's how you do this, but maybe at this point you find that actually you want a different piece of footage in there, like a different animation that you've done, or maybe you've done an updated version, you want to update it. Now, of course, you could now drag it back in and kind of do the same process with those effects again, but there's an easy way to just replace a layer in After Effects. So I'm just selecting that one here, the corner pin one, and I want to just replace that with the same that I'm using up there, but obviously not the cropped composition, just the main footage. So I'm selecting the layer here, and then in my project window I'm selecting the piece of footage that I want to replace it with. And all I'm doing is I'm dragging it from here into this composition on top of this layer, and I need to make sure I've Alt clicked at the Alt held down at the same time, and if I then release the mouse on top of that, it will replace it, as you can see. So I held on Alt and I dragged it from here down there. But you know, maybe we just want to go back to the first one again. Right. Cool, that's part one. You know, you can use obviously moving footage, you can use anything you want in there, but that's an easy way to replace stuff and kind of make your content look like it's somewhere on the streets playing on one of the screens. Thanks very much for watching.